And in 6, because even though he plays the most important position, Seattle's coaching staff does not let him be the best football player in the world. If you go look at the last several years, passes in the first quarter, fewest passes in the first quarter. This is funny. Seattle number 1, Jags, Washington, Bears. So basically, Pete Carroll treats him like Blake Bortles, whoever's quarterbacking Washington, and Mitch Trubisky. That's why Russell Wilson is frantically coming from behind to win games. They're in a hole a lot because they run it too much. It's almost like Russell Wilson is a major league pitcher on a pitch count. He's the only great quarterback in the NFL, maybe in NFL history, that has a head coach that doesn't necessarily coach him for 4 quarters, allowing him to win the game. Pete Carroll wants the ball in somebody else's hands early in football games. Halftime deficits, he has to save the team. And I think that stat's amazing. Fewest pass attempts first quarter last several years. All those teams are bad at quarterback. And then here's the best football player in the world, number 1. It's pretty amazing. And number 1, like, look at who's around him. And, it's funny about this league. So they've started in Seattle. A local vocal segment of Seahawks fans have started a social media movement called Let Russ Cook. It's on T-shirts. It's all over Twitter. It's on social media. Let Russ cook. Let him play. What is remarkable about this is that Bill Belichick is the greatest football coach we believe ever. He lost in Cleveland. He lost in New England before Brady, and he'll have his worst team in 20 years this year. When did he win? When he had a great quarterback. Pete Carroll was fired in New England. He was fired with the Jets, and he was 14-18 in Seattle until he got Russell Wilson. And we think Belichick and Pete Carroll may be the best 2 defensive minds in the NFL over the last 15, 20 years. These are great coaches. Belichick's a first ballot Hall of Famer. Pete's going to get a lot of votes for that. So even great coaches, as Herm Edwards always told me, I wouldn't have worked at ESPN and I had a great quarterback. I'd still be coaching. Now he's at Arizona State. So the great coaches, the guys that win games, Belichick, Pete Carroll, losing records before they get Brady and Russell Wilson. So the fans of Seattle now are seeing something that the analytics are telling you, loudmouths like me are telling you, people are now seeing it, is that let Russ cook. Mahomes, Wentz, Lamar are allowed first play of the game to be themselves. They're not in a hole. You're not handing the ball to people. You want the ball in Wentz's hand, in Mahomes' hand, in Drew Brees' hand. With Russell, he's the only great quarterback in the league. The team takes it away from him, forcing him to make miraculous comebacks, which he often does. But let Russ cook. Finally, people are buying into this thing that we've been on for a couple years here. This is the team. This is the guy. It's not Richard Sherman's great. It wasn't his team. Marshawn Lynch is great. It wasn't his team. Pete Carroll's great. It's not his team. It's Russell's team. Let Russ cook. Joy with the news.
No.
Turn on the news.
This is the Herd Line News, sponsored by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
You and I both were pretty high on the Broncos a few months ago.
I was much higher 8 weeks ago.
Yes. Well, they'll be missing their star pass rusher this season. Von Miller injured his ankle at the end of practice on Tuesday, and it is reportedly a dislocated tendon. He will likely need surgery, and the typical recovery time is said to be 5 to 6 months. So the best case scenario is he returns in 3 months. Really bad news for the Broncos. And this is disappointing. Von Miller is one of the stars in the league and certainly a leader on this team. It's disappointing news
when you
for the
have
Broncos.
Patrick Mahomes in your division, pass rushers become huge. That's why they had Von Miller and they have Bradley Chubb. So they have two really, Chargers also in that division have two really good pass rushers. It's why the Raiders, I think it was last year's draft, first pick, get a pass rusher. This is when you have Mahomes in your division or Brady or Breeze, or you want pass rushers. to disrupt their life. So this is a huge blow. Mark Schlereth on Next Hour, huge blow for Denver.
Yeah, he had 46 total tackles and 8 sacks last season, and obviously is one of the faces of that organization. And like you said, it's someone that you want on the field when you're in that division. So hopefully it's not as bad as they are projecting, and he is able to come back in a few months, but just bummer news. So evaluating college players ahead of the 2021 NFL drafts will be much different this year, with some conferences postponing the season and individual players opting out. And Steelers GM Kevin Colbert said that while he understands why some have chose not to play, he will be more likely to draft someone who takes the field in 2020. He said the players that get the opportunity to play and choose to play, we feel more comfortable in their evaluations, because I just don't know, sitting out a year, what those players are going to look like. There's just not a real natural source of information. We respect the fact that they aren't playing, but I think the best decisions we will be able to make are the ones where we can see them play in 2020.
You know, it's interesting. There is a difference between you have a right to do something and it's the right time to do something. Like, players have a right to opt out,
right.
But if unless I was one of the 12 guys in the league, I would have played. Now, again, Oregon left tackle, go. A great quarterback, go. But there's a difference between having a right to do something and is the right thing to do. And I think for most kids, another year of playing first of all, they're only like 19 now. Like another year of playing college football, you become a better football player.
Well, this is a lot different than, say, sitting out of a bowl game. Which,
that's totally different.
If you're not in the college football playoff, who cares?
We already played 12
games. And people like freak out about that. Like, okay, he is preparing for his future, for the next 10 years of his life.
Instead
You're
of the
worried
Liberty
about
Bowl.
a bowl game.
Yeah.
You can brag to your buddies, your alma mater won. Relax. This isn't about you. This is bigger than that. And I would mostly agree. Like, an extra year of college football is going to benefit 99% of college football players. There is a very small percentage that, if the Steelers feel this way, okay, well, then I won't end up with the Steelers. I'll end up somewhere else, but I'm still a top, 20 pick in the NFL draft no matter what. So I'm not going to risk it this year. That's understandable. And again, I understand what he's saying. We respect the fact that either, you've chosen not to play because of what's happening, or your conference isn't playing. But really what he's saying is, in the draft, if it comes down to an SEC player who we saw this year and a Big Ten player who is not playing, and they're the same, they're equal talent, they're going to go with the player that they saw last year.
Again, you have a right to opt out. I don't have a problem with it.
Those Big Ten players want to play.
Yes.
He's not saying that, but he's saying that he's going to go with the player that he has seen play most recently.
Yeah.
Like, that's going to be their policy when it comes to the draft. And it likely will be other teams that look at it as well. And this is why it's so complicated in the college sports space, because it's not as simple as, oh, I'm an NFL player, I've already made some millions of dollars, I have a family, I'm going to sit out this year.
Last 2 number 1 picks, Joe Burrow, Kyler Murray, do not go number 1 if they don't play their last year. In fact, I can make an argument Joe Burrow would, because he became a phenomena. Yeah. Joe Burrow may not get drafted.
Yeah.
Kyler would have been drafted.
Kyler Murray still would have been drafted.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow is a completely different situation. She's acknowledged. Like, if he didn't play last year, who knows what his life looks like.
He was a guy that played at LSU and couldn't get it done and had to transfer from Ohio State. That's what he is.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Obviously, everyone is making adjustments, and we're all going through this together. But the draft next year, I think we all agree the draft this year was phenomenal.
Unbelievable.
Especially considering the circumstances.
Yeah.
I actually kind of liked it more that way, to be honest with you.
Yeah, so did I.
I thought it was a little more personal.
Yeah, way more personal.
I know it's super fun for the fans, and it's a big thing for the NFL to have the fans in the city, and it was amazing in Nashville. But it's going to look very different next year with a lot of guys not playing. Finally, the Bucks suffered another disappointing exit this year, falling in the second round to the Heat. Nice gentleman's sweep. And they could face more bad news next year if Giannis decides to leave. But Milwaukee may pursue another top player to help keep Giannis there. According to Mark Stein, many rival teams think the Bucks are going to explore a trade for Chris Paul if the Thunder make him available.
Well, they lost Malcolm, their point guard, Brogdon, to Indiana. So a lot of people think that's it. Just they never recovered from that. They've got a couple of good wings. But when they lost Brogdon to Indiana, it's never the same offense, and it would be with Chris Paul.
Well, they may have trouble matching salaries in a Chris Paul trade, but that would obviously improve the offense and show Giannis that they are committed to winning and they're serious about it. He's owed more than $85 million over the next 2